Hi, my name is Taylor McGuire, and I'm currently a senior at the University of Oklahoma, and I'm enrolled in the Spring 2020 class of Native American Music. I'll be talking about the misappropriation of American Indian cultures through American popular music in my presentation today. So, to begin, I want to talk about how, for centuries, elements of the rich cultures of American Indians have been stolen and used for profit by many entertainment industries. One of the most common industries to partake in such misappropriation is the music industry. The Western world has had a fascination with the culture of Native Americans for a very long time, and they don't stop to consider the harm that can be done by taking the significance and meaning of their cultures lightly. Cultures are not sources of entertainment, they're a way of life. Culture provides a deep connection between many generations of people within that culture. And misappropriation is damaging to those cultures because it strips their uniqueness and places them in stereotypical boxes that can take a very long time to break free from. And today I want to talk about many internal elements of misappropriation and how it has occurred over time. So, for centuries, the rich culture of American Indians has been stolen and used for profit by many entertainment industries. One of the most common industries to partake in such a misappropriation is the music industry. The Western world has had a fascination with the culture of Native Americans for a really long time, and oftentimes people don't stop to consider the harm that can be done by taking the significance and meaning of Native American culture lightly. Cultures are not sources of entertainment, they're a way of life, and culture provides a deep connection between generations of people within that culture. So, misappropriation is damaging to cultures, and it strips their uniqueness and it places them in stereotypical boxes that can take many, many years to overcome. So, we're going to begin by talking about cultural misappropriation and the definition of this. So, what exactly is cultural misappropriation? Cultural misappropriation occurs when one culture, in this case American culture, takes aspects from another culture, in this case Native American culture, and uses them for their own benefit without authorization. So, not only is this disrespectful, but it can spread inaccurate representations of a culture. In America, misappropriation of American Indian culture can be seen in many forms. One of these forms is seen in playing Indian, and it can be seen in many ways, with or without realizing the repercussions from this. For example, around Thanksgiving time in America, it's really popular for people to find images of Native Americans next to peaceful Indian, or Europeans, sorry, not Indians. Um, Children dress up as Indians for plays at school around Thanksgiving time, and more often than not, these children are not Native American and do not even understand or recognize what Native American culture actually is. So, Native Americans are often used as school mascots as well, and when this is used, a lot of times they're seen in a savage form. And another really common way that people play Indian is dressing up as Native Americans for Halloween. They're all really disrespectful to do this, and all of these forms of playing Indians are common examples of how non-natives use Indian culture to their own discretion without thinking of the consequences. In the music industry, a common act of misappropriation is when non-native people sing redface. So what exactly is singing redface? So singing redface is when non-native people play Indian through music, specifically. So this can occur through the use of racial slurs, mocking Native American languages, and the production of Native American music that is not actually music from or representative of Native American cultures. One example of a singing redface actual music in American music is Indian Giver by Annette Funicello. So, the song Indian Giver is an example of red face because it shows significant misappropriation of Native Americans and the term Indian giver, which gives an inaccurate representation of Native Americans. It has a bad connotation for someone who cannot be trusted, and this puts a bad image on the term Native American and Indian giver. So the lyrics in this song state, "You're just an Indian giver and you think it's smart. To you, it's all a game. You promise to be faithful? What a heap of big smoke." This presents an image to the listener of the song that the Native Americans did not keep their promise and took back what was no longer theirs. And this use of red face furthers the idea that Native Americans are savages. And in my opinion, the song and the term Indian giver is very harmful because Americans took the land of the Native Americans, not the other way around. So I just feel like it's kind of ironic that they're giving Native Americans a term such as Indian giver and spreading that representation that is wrong. So the song Indian Giver also uses the term squaw in its lyrics, which is often used as a racial slur against Native Americans. This song was a really popular song in the 1960s, and the fact that these types of racist and derogatory terms were used shows the tone-deaf actions of many Americans in regard to Native Americans and Native American culture. It presented the false idea that these terms were acceptable to use, when in fact they're not acceptable to use at all. So this brings me to the idea of blackface minstrelsy. So what exactly is this? Seeing red face comes with significant stereotypical and archetypical racial repercussions. In the 19th centuries, minstrel songs such as coon songs, as they were called, became really popular. So, like seen with red face in Native American culture, blackface arose from the fascination of African American culture by Americans. America used blackface to further the common and horrifically inaccurate idea that white people were superior to other races. The creation of stock characters was really popular, and these were used to represent the American idea of African Americans and also Native Americans, which led to increased levels of misrepresentation and racism. Like seen in the use of red face, people from wide ranges of culture, traditions, personalities were placed within the same stereotype, and this diminished the richness and significance of unique and independent cultures that were seen within groups of African Americans and Native Americans. And the use of this type of song in American popular music led to racial antipathy. So what exactly is racial antipathy? So this is the hatred, prejudice, and bigotry towards a group of people or one of its members because of their race. The red face and black face used to create false superiority over Native Americans and African Americans are both forms of racial antipathy. The prejudice and bigotry that arose for many people and that was directed towards Native Americans and African Americans was really harmful. So both African Americans and Native Americans have experienced historical racism because of these things. And historical racism is a term that's used to describe long periods of racism and oppression due to these phenotypic characteristics or ethnic affiliation. These acts of historical racism have led to numerous negative effects, such as mistrust in non-Native or non-African American groups, and red face and blackface stem from historical racism, and this can impact the mental and social health of these groups. So it's important to realize that this misappropriation has been occurring for a very long time, and the impacts have trickled down through generations for a very long time as well. So subject appropriation occurs often as well when considering Native Americans in the realm of popular music. Um, this type of appropriation is more easily discussed when considered on a case-to-case basis. It revolves around the occurrence of harmful representations of Native Americans, even if songs were hoped to be sympathetic. So, in American popular music, these songs were created and they thought that they were connecting to Native Americans and showing sympathy for them, but it actually created another problem. So, this issue gave rise to a term called idealized sympathy, which is when non natives have sympathy for an imaginary idea of what a Native American is and what their culture involves. Many songs can show this type of subject and voice appropriation in American culture. So, this also can lead to a term called cultural confusion. So, the issues that arise from idealized sympathy, voice appropriation, and subject appropriation can lead to cultural confusion. Um, this happens when Americans have really only ever known an inaccurate and harmful representation of Native Americans and Native American cultures. So, copious and copious amounts of misrepresentations have been placed out into the world, whether through books, movies, television shows, music, and other sources of entertainment. And these misrepresentations are presented to people every day, whether we realize it or not. So, because of this, cultural confusion has become very prominent. So, playing Indian has created large scale misappropriation that can take years and years to undo. And in order to stop this misappropriation, we have to raise awareness of the racist past and present that is often ignored. We must acknowledge the issues and address them. We can't just sweep them under the rug. Native Americans continue to push forward for a future that includes less misappropriation. They're bringing awareness to the issues that arise from misappropriation in entertainment industries such as music. Native Americans are standing up and defending their traditions and cultures and the way that they choose to express them and have expressed them historically. So, for one example of how Native Americans are standing up for themselves, was seen in an organization of libraries, archivists, museum curators, and representatives from multiple Native American communities that came together in 2006 to create a resource called the Protocols for Native American Archival Materials. And this resource was created in order to help people handle Native American culture and traditional materials in the most respectful way that they could. So this includes materials such as audible recordings, such as songs, chants, oral stories, folklore, personal and family information, cartographic material, and archaeological and genealogical data that belongs to Native American nations. Even if organizations that are non-native have access or to hold these types of Native American material, they should treat them with respect and handle and express them appropriately. So these materials should always be used to reflect the people, cultures, and traditions from which they were created. And just because the Native Americans might not have physical, control of them, they should still be considered at all times. So these materials are part of a heritage, and they will continue to be passed down from one generation to the next. Because of this, accurate representations need to be required and focused on at all times when handling archival material. This movement was really important for Native Americans in the construction of this group because it was a step in the right direction in regards to lessening misappropriation in the future. Misappropriation of American Indian culture by American popular music is just one avenue by which American Indians can be discriminated against and disrespected. Music is a really popular media source for the spread of misrepresentation, and oftentimes Americans don't stop to consider the implications of this type of music can have for Native Americans. Cultures and traditions shouldn't be taken so lightly, and they have to be thought about. They are not sources of entertainment, and they are not roles to be played. They hold importance and should be honored and respected. Native Americans, their cultures, and their traditions have been disregarded for centuries, and the result of this are harmful for Native Americans even today. As also today, in 2020, Native Americans are still fighting for the rights to their own heritage. They are fighting for recognition, honor, and respect. Misappropriation through entertainment needs to be acknowledged and eliminated in order to create a future that shows appreciation and respect for the significant cultures of Native Americans.